Darkness fell over Los Angeles in the mid-1980s as a wave of brutal crimes left the city paralyzed with fear. The man responsible for these atrocities was Richard Ramirez, a name forever etched into the annals of American criminal history. Dubbed the Night Stalker, Ramirez's reign of terror would transform him into one of the most infamous and feared serial killers of all time. Born in 1960 in El Paso, Texas, Richard Ramirez endured a deeply troubled childhood. The youngest of 5 children, he grew up in a household marked by violence and instability. His father, a laborer, was prone to explosive outbursts, subjecting young Richard to physical abuse. But the most sinister influence in his life came from his cousin, Miguel Ramirez. Miguel was a Vietnam War veteran who took pride in recounting his gruesome wartime exploits, often showing Richard graphic photographs of his victims. These horrifying images, coupled with Miguel's twisted mentorship, left an indelible mark on Richard's impressionable mind. At the age of 12, Richard witnessed Miguel murder his wife in cold blood during an argument. This traumatic event, combined with his exposure to violence, Satanism, and substance abuse, sent him spiraling down a path of darkness. By the time he reached his teenage years, Ramirez had dropped out of school and begun dabbling in petty crimes, eventually turning to burglary as a way to support his growing drug addiction. In 1984, Ramirez escalated his criminal activities to something far more sinister. His killing spree began in Los Angeles, where he preyed on victims indiscriminately. Under the cover of night, he would break into homes, unleashing unspeakable violence upon those inside. Ramirez's methods were chillingly varied. Some victims were shot, others stabbed, beaten, or strangled. The lack of a consistent modus operandi made it difficult for investigators to predict his next move. Ramirez did not discriminate in his choice of victims. His prey ranged in age from young children to the elderly, and they came from diverse backgrounds. The randomness of his attacks heightened the public's fear, as it seemed no one was safe from the Night Stalker's wrath. To make matters worse, Ramirez began leaving satanic symbols, such as pentagrams, at his crime scenes. He even forced some of his victims to profess their allegiance to Satan before killing them. These details, sensationalized by the media, only added to the growing hysteria in Southern California. As the body count rose, so did the desperation of law enforcement. The Los Angeles Police Department launched an exhaustive manhunt, enlisting the help of the FBI to track down the elusive killer. Meanwhile, the media frenzy surrounding the Night Stalker reached a fever pitch, with newspapers and television broadcasts amplifying the public's fears. The city was on edge. Doors were locked, windows were barred, and residents lived in constant dread of the next attack. Ramirez's reign of terror came to an abrupt end in August 1985. After his face was plastered across newspapers and television, Ramirez was recognized by a group of citizens in East Los Angeles. What followed was a chaotic chase through the streets as residents banded together to detain him. By the time police arrived, Ramirez had been beaten and subdued by the very community he had terrorized. In court, Ramirez remained unapologetic, embracing his notoriety with chilling nonchalance. He shocked the courtroom by declaring, "Hail Satan," and flashing a pentagram he had drawn on his palm. His trial was one of the most expensive and heavily publicized in California history, culminating in his conviction for 13 murders, along with numerous other charges of attempted murder, sexual assault, and burglary. Ramirez was sentenced to death in 1989, though he would spend the remainder of his life on death row. In 2013, Ramirez died of complications from cancer while awaiting execution. Though he never faced the ultimate punishment, his legacy of terror continues to haunt the collective memory. The Night Stalker's crimes are a stark reminder of the evil that can hide behind a human face, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike.